dear friends. It's so exciting. I can move again. I can gambol joyfully around the workshop, and also take the dog for a walk again. Possibly not a cycle ride just yet. Thank you for all the good wishes, getting better and things. That's very kind of you. Now then, let's see what we're going to do today. After a particularly sleepless night, caused not by pain this time, but by trying to figure out the little carriage and get it to work properly, I suddenly realised it is worth doing. I kept telling myself, just go to sleep, you're not going to achieve anything. But you do, this is the problem, and I did. Because one of the first things I realised was, the strings down here are spaced 13mm apart. And they go up to about, well they did, 10mm, here we are, look, or even 8mm. It's just not necessary. I suddenly realised, because I've been trying to keep this carriage as narrow as possible so it doesn't bang into the other three. But if I don't have to worry about that, I don't have to worry about that. I can have them as sort of wide as possible, and at this sort of level and scale, the odd millimetre, very odd millimetres here and there, make a big difference. So I'm going to cut my own one of these. I'm sure it's got a name. If you know it, please do let me know in the comments. And keep them 13mm apart. That way, everything is going to be so much easier. It's one of those things you think, why didn't I think of it earlier? But you just don't. So I'm going to get that done, and then I'm going to carry on developing this, because there are a couple of changes. I still need to move this top one up further because it's still not quite right. And in fact, I was thinking about it because I think it's going to make a bit of noise having such a small little roller, 8mm one, on the inside of this timing belt, because it's going to sort of catch on all the little teeth. So I'm going to possibly make a larger one of those. I'll have a think about it, but it's all so exciting. I don't know whether it's going to work or not. Heaven only knows, but we'll give it a go. What fun! And the old one just pronged off really easily, so that can go there. I'll sand the bottom of that just to make sure it's flat, and then the strings, I'm sure I can work out how to get them around these bits and pieces. Anyway, that's good. And the other thing I realised was that the carriage needs to actually sit over each fret, because even with the bearing just touching the string, that was sufficient. It didn't have to push it firmly down so it touched the fret at all. So I need to cut a long story even longer to get the bearing sitting exactly over each fret, and it banged into that, and I was thinking, oh no, I'm going to have to move them. And I thought, hang on a minute, it needs to be moved by about 8mm. There's room to drill another 8mm hole there beside it, so that's fantastic. So I don't need to make two more of them, at least for the time being, because I can just use what I've already got, which is great. Sometime later, and there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. I did drill another hole here, 8mm further along, and fix it back down so they spin nicely. The strings, thanks to the new thing at the top, are now parallel all the way down, 13mm apart, 13.5mm in fact. I moved the motors out further. I've got it retuned, found a lovely website, Eukelele tuning. So you can even use it with a microphone. It's amazing what they can do these days. So my next job is to string up the carriage, wherever that's gone. Here we are, the carriage. Now I'm happy with all this, and on a new piece of the timing belt, and then make any adjustments to that and get a new one printed with improvements. Thank you. So this was the last version of the carriage. I didn't make it solid. I think it was 25% fill, and when I was trying to get this top pin to fit in this L, it snapped off, which is okay for testing purposes, and also I hadn't got the bearings, so this was still that spinny thing. And I realised I needed to move apart a little bit more, a millimetre that way and a millimetre downwards. It's just slowly getting there and changing the size of these pins so that they slot in firmly, and making the whole lot wider, of course, because you know, now I've got the strings further apart, I can make it wider. So here's the next iteration. I'm thrilled with it. It's like the brother I never knew or had. There's the bearings that arrived with a washer between them, so they fill that nicely. I've made the whole thing a little bit wider because this was a little bit too tight on the belt at the top. It's solid now, 100%. So it's also, the other good thing about that is it's going to be more difficult to vibrate. It'll be more rigid. And there's the other bit, and it fits like a glove on a hand of the right size. It's an absolute joy. The timing belts fit in. Look at that, it just clips together beautifully. I won't clip it yet. I'm going to stop talking about it and preening myself and get this fitted on and see what happens. What a joy. Oh, it's just so exciting. It works beautifully. You can see the bearings on the top won't make any noise rubbing against the drive belt. The drive belt grips perfectly. The bearing at the bottom follows the string and pushes down with it. I'll put this on a tripod so I can demonstrate. I'm absolutely thrilled with that. I can't tell you, because as I've said all along with this music machine, for better or for worse, I really had no idea whether this is going to work. And having had so many ideas in the past, I think I am very pleased with this. Now I know that that works, what I'm going to do is to wire up a motor and just get it driving backwards and forwards. And I can also, it's just so exciting being able to imagine something, you know, having a need for some sort of little mechanism or support thing, and going away and drawing it. And yeah, look, and that this holds it vertically so it can't wobble too far off, and it just runs up and down with that slot, the groove in the bearing. Oh, it makes an old man very happy. Right, let's wire it up and see it moving. But first, of course, we need some way of mounting 4 of these micro switches over the end here, so that when the carriages, when you first switch the whole thing on, the motors, stepper motors, revolve until the carriage presses this, and then it knows where it is. It knows where the frets are in effect. So you tell it, okay, I want the 3rd fret along. It knows exactly where that is and how to get to it. Otherwise, they could just be driving all over the place. So, almost there. What I've done, I found this is the best way to do this sort of thing, is to work out the actual details, how big a slots I need. I'm going to make it from 10mm acrylic laser cut, with slots cut out for each switch and a back on it and some other bits and pieces. But it's so difficult to know where to start with this sort of thing. How on earth, where, how, why? So I draw out a really basic one. I want it to be 100 wide inside, 93 high to the bottom of the switches, roughly that sort of idea, and then I can go and sit down at 2D Design, CAD software, and then get that drawn out and then add all sorts of twiddly bits and make nice little finials and all sorts of stuff. It's finished! Oh, how we laughed. Just teasing. This I'm using to cut out a test hole from a bit of scrap 10mm to make sure that the micro switches will go in, because I don't want to waste a load of time and effort and all the rest of it, and then find that they don't. That is too wobbly. I want it to be a nice tight push fit. That was 0.1mm smaller because obviously the width of the laser is 2.54. 0.254, that's right, millimetres. I will fiddle around and do some more tests until I get it just right. I won't bore you with this much more, but the second hole, which is 0.1mm small all round, is perfect. It just pushes really nicely in there. Right, I've got it cut out and engraved, or engraved and cut out. I have absolutely no idea what this is going to look like. I wanted it to be vaguely reminiscent of a sort of bridge, a musical instrument bridge. Let's see. Now the plan was... that's annoying, isn't it? Hang on a minute. Showing what I'm doing. It needs to go right back here, does it? Yeah, and look, it's banging into... Oh, if they were just that little bit smaller, it would actually fit there, which would look nice. It just shows you a lack of planning. But something like that, I think once it's sprayed up, that'll look nice. I don't want to overdo it again. It's difficult to make it too cluttered, but I need a row of switches, and rather than trying to hide them away somewhere unsuccessfully, make them obvious. The wonders of not planning. I've got out the two little notches, putting it across. I've taken the dog for a walk. Well, a ride actually. I ventured back on the bike, which is probably why I'm sleeping so badly again. Never mind, I mustn't grumble. And that's the joy. That's why I tested the size of these holes, because these 4 little micro switches just push in firmly enough so there's no glue needed, so if one breaks I can always take them out. And then round the back, I've drilled those little holes to link everything together. I've wired them up. Common ground, and the other ones with the 4 different colours, around orange, yellow, green, blue, just so I know which one's which. Then I can screw the back plate on and then get this mounted on there. Where? There. And in further news, I've printed one of these, another version 6 this is, super improved version, with brass filament. Obviously there's a few little fluffy bits, but I'll trim them off. And this time it's got this bit sticking up with an M4 tapped hole in it, 3D printed. How amazing. So that as that runs along there, I can adjust with a brass M4 screw when that bit knocks into that bit. This is all getting very exciting. As you can see, I've got that fixed down, and I'm really pleased with how that looks. From whatever angle of the dangle, it just makes it look quite intriguing. Now obviously I'm not going to have a load of coloured wires coming out the top. I'm going to have them going through some 8mm copper pipe, sort of coming over to something or other, but that can wait. But there's the brass thing, carriage as we seem to be calling it. So as it comes up, click, perfect. And it'll stop, obviously it's not going to drive past the click. Instant that, the software will stop it turning, and that'll be the 0 point, which is just past this first fret. Perfect. I'm going to have some lunch now, and then, dear friends, I'm going to wire this up and see what it looks like when it works. Well, I've had my lunch. I've got it wired up to the H-bridge interface I was using earlier in an Uno, and the switch just so I know where the origin is. And I've written a sketch, and I have worked out how many steps it has to take to go up to each fret. We have a problem. Let's listen out for a second. What's that noise I can hear in the distance? It's the 3D printer stepper motors, mounted on a solid metal frame. Let's try this one. First thing it's going to do is to go back to the origin, the switch. Like so. Problem is the noise. Anyone, if you've got any suggestions about this, how to cut down the volume, because this, with one of them's bad enough. If I've got 4 stepper motors and I'm trying to listen to a ukulele over the top of that, 4 of them whizzing around, that's absolutely ridiculous. Dog taken for a walk on the bike, had an absolutely lovely time. And I was thinking, let's just finish this video properly, because I am so excited, having witted on that last bit with the noise, not thinking there's any way around this, and does this put the whole project in jeopardy, drowning out the little feeble string sounds of the ukulele. I thought I'd mention how I solved it. So the issue was this awful noise vibrating at 200 RPM, because I'd read that somewhere, specifications for this motor, maximum RPM 200. I think there's a lot of misinformation about these stepper motors. That's better, it's plugged in, look. It's absolutely silent and really, really fast. And I remember to put the pulley, the bearing back on the strings. rather silent. I can't tell you how pleased I am. I'm absolutely thrilled. 800 RPM. I haven't tried to go above that. But anyway, thanks very much for watching. It is so exciting now things are actually moving, and quietly. Any comments I'm always happy to ask or answer rather, or if you've got any suggestions, please put them in the comments. Please remember to click subscribe and the bell, and I hope to see you next time, and there'll be even more exciting things happening. Thanks again.